Welcome to King Finska. King Finska is played like a normal game of Finska with the 12 pins, but with the addition of a 13th pin, 2 foot lengths behind the rest of the pack. The idea in King Finska is to play in a normal way, and you can use anything as the king. I mean, I've made this special king pin here, handsome dude, but you can use something like a lump of wood, and this is the lump of wood we use first of all. The main thing is that it's got to be just a little bit higher than the rest of the pins so that you have a chance of knocking it without knocking the pins. The gameplay goes as per normal. You throw the thing and, score, in this case 9. Let's put these back up and try and have a quick simulation of a game. Okay, now during the play, if you knock over the king while you're scoring like that, you score what would be in this case 8 plus a spare. Now the king just goes back up wherever it is and you go on. But now I have a spare shot, and the spare is used if you miss a shot completely. You can use one spare at a time. You can only use one every go, but you can use the spare to catch up, have another shot. Now the game goes on as such, as per normal, and say I'm on 41, the 9's out here. I've got to try and get the 9 to get to 50, but once I get to 50, I've also got to knock the king over, and I've got to knock the king over without knocking anything else over. Now, the other thing that you can do is if I'm 41 and the 9 is, say, in this position, I can go to try to do a king hit, where I knock both the king and the 9 over and I win in one shot. If, for instance, I was on 41, but the other player I was playing against was on a lower score and wanted to try and prevent me from getting the 9 and the king, they might knock pins up into around the king. So now, if I'm 41 and I want to try and get a 9, it's much harder. So, or if I was on 50 and I wanted to get the king, the other player might knock the pins up. Now I've got to try and knock the king over without knocking any of the pins. And I did it. But it's often, particularly if the other player knocks pins up behind the king, that makes it much harder. So in this case, if I was trying to get the king, and I'm back to 25. And that's how it's played. It adds a whole... There's just one other element in our version of the game that I want to explain, and that's the caveat. Now, the caveat is a rule we had, so that say one player is on 41, the other player is on 42, one player gets the 9, they're on 50, and then they've got to go for the king. The other player hits an 8 and also gets to 50. The first player knocks the king over and he wins the first position, but the other player, he calls caveat, and he also then has a go to hit the king over without knocking anything else over. If he does so, it's a draw and they have to have another round. Then it's a playoff for the king. One player will try and hit the king, And then the other player has to have a go at knocking the king over.